doing so because in the invitation and suggesting that we attend, because our eyes, both of us, I would say,
Absolutely.
were totally open. And we were able to see what other foundations and community foundations around the Southeast were doing, specifically in areas that were very pertinent to us, like inequities and social injustice. And we were able to see firsthand how philanthropy was addressing so many of these challenges facing, those communities. And our hearts, especially mine, was especially pricked to see how these other foundations were working to identify and dismantle systems of structural racism and try to build more equitable systems within the communities. And as Athan already mentioned, a lot of times sometimes we feel like we're all alone in trying to deal with issues pertinent to our focus and goal in our church. And it was just exciting to see the collaborative nature and what people were able to do when they came together. You're able to do a lot more instead of course, working in silos, as was already mentioned. And so I see, and I think my husband would agree, that this big fund is a way to really serve those who are most impacted by some of the very prevailing and pertinent issues in the community. And it gives the people that are really connected, like us and other big donors, the ability to work collectively and strategically and be a part of the decision-making process. And so we're very excited to be a part of this initiative.
And she's spoken so well, I just have to say Athan. I want to say thank you to Athan, to May Douglas, to Phelps, and all of our guests for joining us. I am Adrian Starks. It's a privilege to be able to share with you briefly. When I think about what my wife said, she's really spoke the gist of my heart, and we didn't even cross compare our notes. I guess that speaks to the symmetry and the oneness that we walk in. And I love that. I think that it's an opportunity for the community to do likewise. Why? Because the needs are undeniable. And the big opportunity is so marvelous. I think it is overdue, but all things come in their due season. The truth of the matter is that when I look at the goal of reimagining Black philanthropy, that resonated with me. And when I consider big, because let's be honest, the Black community has a rich history of philanthropy. We are a giving community in many cases because we have had to give, lest we would not have been survivors. But to think of it in the context of reimagining philanthropy is, I think, so broadening. It opens a door, going into the doors of Disney World. You're just in ooh and ah, this could be so great, so grand. Why? Because of the essence of what my wife just spoke about, the collaboration or the coalescing. Oftentimes we give in traditional models and we give in a context that impacts a moment. But what Big provides is for us to give collectively in a fashion that opens up a legacy context and a probability of making a bigger footprint in the terms of change. And as a board member and as the chair now of the grants committee, I've seen great things being done through the usefulness of the tools and of equity and strategies. And I said, this is time that the Black community leverages these kinds of tools and sees a greater impact of change. And that in and of itself is why we're big. If I can encapsulate it in one sense, with one phrase, it would be just hearing that we are big. Our gift is big. It doesn't matter if I'm giving $10 or if I'm giving $10,000 or $1,000,000. Somehow or another, my gift is big. And if in my opinion, that's tremendous. That levels the playing field. That makes us all feel like we made a meaningful contribution, and we can walk away feeling good about what we've done.
Ooh, there we go. I'm glad somebody reminded me to hit the record button. Because I get excited, and I'll just be honest. I don't know if you're on this call, you can't get excited about that, especially like you said. This is like the campaign is why I'm big, and we said every gift's a blessing, every gift's a miracle. But we are excited to say that this is about reimagining philanthropy, Black philanthropy, and the ability to give. We do want everybody to be big. Thank you to the Starks, but also thank you to World Victory, because the church has also come in and they are big as partners. And that's so important because as I tell people, the first community foundation I knew of was the Black church. So we're building on that. We're going to be doing some more intensive and intentional work with Black churches, the faith community. It's going to take time, and so you'll be hearing the Starks. But we say that we know we all go to different houses of worship. So there's a place for you all to be a part of big and be big with us. So please let us know and tell everybody we're not asking for the tithe. We're asking for, maybe the Easter suit, since we didn't all get to wear it. Some of that money. But thank you for opening it up, and I hope people get the sense that part of that reimagining is that it's about us being who we are and celebrating who we are. And there's room at the Community Foundation. We're now moving from diversity to inclusion, and that's what big represents. I want to keep going because I do want to have some time. As you can see, this is why it's so great to have the Starks, because I get lifted and I'm ready to go. And there's a great picture of them. Thank you. But you've heard this amazing testimony about why the Starks are big and World Victory is big. But others have been saying what others are saying. We share this with you. If you Google us, there's been local media has really gotten into this and run with it and been very supportive. You can look at the News and Record. Alan Johnson has done to date, I think, about 3 opinions and also some stories on it. But we've also nationally, the Kellogg Foundation featured a Big Equity Fund in their annual report. That means we're not only national, but we're international. But that's very important in the field of philanthropy, this work that's happening. We like to share that with you because we all know that we're in Greensboro and we're biased. So don't take our word for it if you don't. But if you go out there, others are watching big. And like I tell folks, this is the call. It's about information session, but it's also about the ask. And one of the asks is we want you all to get on board with us. But also, this is happening in Greensboro, I feel, not by accident. This is Greensboro, North Carolina, where this is a trailblazing community. And we're just building on that legacy here that we all know about. As others are saying what others are saying at this point, I'd like to open it up for some questions. We're going to leave this screen up. We'll come back to that because we're going to make that ask again. And I'll ask always again, we're asking you to become big donors, but also more importantly, become champions. So let me just open it up. Phelps Sprinkle is going to give some comments about what this means to us as an institution. And then May, you can have some comments as to get us started for discussion. Phelps?
Thanks, Athan. Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join us here today. We are so excited about this endowment and the work behind it and what it means. Let me just start out and say, most of you guys probably don't know this, but Athan This is his life's work. And I don't say that just to brag on him, although I do like to brag on him because he's a good friend and I'm proud to be his friend. But he's been doing this work since he graduated from college in 1993. He has spent so much time working on philanthropy, especially in communities of color, both on the grant making or investment side, as well as most recently at the Community Foundation on the donor side. And those relationships he's developed over those, how many years now? 30 years, 20 something years in philanthropy. And I would argue it goes way back, like you said, to when he was a kid going to church, right? But that experience, that life experience, and the relationships that he's developed across the country is why this work is working and why we are where we are here today. That's why the Community Foundation hired him about 6 years ago to come in and start this work. At the time, we didn't have the relationships that we have today, nowhere close with donors of color. We now have, I'd say it's about 7 or 8% of our donor advised fund holders, maybe 6 or 7% are donors of color, most of whom are Black. And those relationships didn't exist before. Many of them have come because it took what Athan calls expose, educate, and engage. And we've done so much, and I should say he's led so much exposure and education, both in terms of the individuals, many of whom are on this call with May and Adrian, to national conferences that Shandi mentioned, and to other experts who come and talk to us. They've made us look inward as well. It's been a lot of focus on the Community Foundation and how we do the work we do, and how we need to improve our worldview and how we see things. And the ignorances, some truly ignorant, and some may have been intentional, but going forward, there's transparency. And so I've been really pleased to be part of a Community Foundation that's doing that work. Let me say that this big equity fund is, and Athan mentioned this, just building on a legacy that's happened in Greensboro and has been around for a long time. But this, what's interesting to me is this fund is going to be unlike any fund you're going to see out there. There's not another fund we know of in the United States that's being founded and led the way this one is by the Black community. So Black leaders in this community, the steering committee, May, Adrian, Kendrick, many others of whom are part of, are the ones that are leading this. And what I've talked to white donors, because I've spent quite a bit of time calling more of our traditional fund holders and talking to them about this program and why and what we're doing, a lot of folks who have given to it, the main reason is for that reason, is because they know they can give to something that is being led by people who know where the needs and the challenges are the most. And so we're seeing a lot of people who want to give to this. And let me just say also, this is not a, we all make gifts during the year, and we make gifts to annual funds, right? We help pay for operating budgets on an annual basis, or specifically to fund a program that's going on. That's typically coming out of people's paychecks. It's something that you're given as a percentage of something that, whether you're a tither or you're given just because this is someone who's asked. This is a different type of giving. This is an opportunity to give assets. We're looking for people to think about long-term transformational gifts. This is coming from the soul. It's coming from a legacy. How do we build a legacy? And I'm really impressed with the number of people who have stepped up. We're already over $1 million, and we're getting to get to 3 million before we know it. And I hope that you guys will not only give to this and consider giving to it, but also tell your friends. We're going to be doing these information sessions for between now and August. So there's plenty of opportunities. So please tell your friends and let us know how we can even make private presentations and have conversations with folks that you know.
Hey, thanks, Phelps.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, everyone. I think Phelps eloquently shared several of the points that I was going to bring up. So I think we'll just take some questions at this time.
And Kendrick, before I forget, we can get to big steering committee, who those folks are. And those of you all, if you're not asking any questions, I'm just assuming that we did our job and check gifts in the mail. You've got the pledge forms. If not, you can go to our website and just call me directly. But please, this is an opportunity to, if not have a question, just share a comment about you're excited. We love to hear that. That energizes us. While you're thinking about that, here are the steering committee members. As you can see who they are, you can read it, but we want to show the diversity of the sectors that people come from and represent. So with that, we can talk and watch that at the same time.
Hi, this is Bob Wynn.
Hey, Bob.
Hi, Bob Wynn here, and my family had been an early donor in the 80s to a small donor advised fund, the Robert L. and Margaret H. Wynn Memorial Scholarship Fund. So we've been following the work of Athan and the foundation for a very long time, and it's been fantastic to see the type of progression that has been made, especially under the leadership of Mr. Fink and also Mr. Lindsay. I really like what you're doing. Athan knows it. He and I have talked offline a few times, and this is the direction that is so important. And it was prescient to see that this was done, even before the pandemic and some of the onslaught of additional social interest was expressed. But I must say also that the foundation had a very wonderful articulation of social justice after the George Floyd murder. So we do appreciate that too. I noticed the mission statement. I've formed a number of different nonprofits, so I get into visions and mission statements. And it talks about the interest in tearing down systems that have been barriers. But I hope that the vision is beyond just tearing down systems, or it sounded a little incomplete to me. And I like the language of to change and improve systems to be more responsive to the needs of the Black community. So it's just something that I noticed that there could be a little bit more of a positive and innovation orientation to the mission statement, as opposed to sort of change from the standpoint of the past or barriers. But my wife is on as well, Millie Jones, so I don't know if she'll want to say something, but you know, we certainly want to be on the list of donors, probably small, but certainly want to be part of it.
Thank you, Bob.
Millie, are you going to say anything?
Right.
Okay.
And I'd leave it to some of our steering committee members. They can talk. They were part of the vision and mission, and if there are any comments. But Bob, we hear that. And
sorry, excuse me, before you move to the steering committee, I have a couple of questions actually. First and foremost, my question is, what frame or timeline you guys thinking about releasing some of the funds? And how did you guys, it's a two-part question, how you guys identify the entities in which you guys, I know you guys said small business on the east side, but how do you guys going to identify exactly who qualifies for the funds?
Yep. Can I ask real quickly, the magic question, everybody want to know when funds will be released? That's probably going to be as soon as we get to 3 million. That's been what the committee wanted to do, establish, and there's an intentional effort behind that. We're real clear up front. We're not going to do smaller $1,000, $5,000 gifts. We're thinking big, even in multi-year, want to have bigger impact. And the way this endowment works, of course, 3 million is going to be great, but it's like anything, the more we have in it, the more we're able to grant out. But it's really going to be dependent on when we get there. And it's a bold move by the committee, steering committee, to say that they wanted to get to the 3 million. And now that the bishop is on here, it was more than just say, people prayed it and declared it was going to have, but that's going to be the trigger. And during that time, I like it because it allows us to be able to develop and answer the questions that you're asking right now, to be able to be intentional. We haven't, as you can imagine, it's been tough in the pandemic, but we've been working and really getting the steering committee is going to be, exploring from research to just exposure to, what other areas or what will be the groups that we identify. A lot of that's just going to come over the time of us planning and doing that work.
Yeah, Athan, I just want to reinforce that in that the steering committee itself assembled for the first time, and Athan mentioned this in February of 19 and February of 20, just before the pandemic. So when we collectively came together, it was really for the first time because those were members who decided to be big donors, but it was our first team building session when we came together for the vision, mission, and values. And so we are continuing to work together and figure out how we are going to make those decisions about where the investments will be made. Obviously, as we think about strategic alliances, we want to bring other individuals, other organizations in, as well as potentially including those people who may be impacted by our investments. So to Athan's point, the goal is that we not do this in isolation, but that we will do research, we'll talk to others, and include those who would be impacted by our investments before we make those decisions. So it's not going to be a very light decision, but one that will involve a process.
And Tiffany, let me add to, and others may have had this question, but just to give you a sense of the actual dollars we're talking about, the Community Foundation manages lots of different types of endowments. All of those endowments receive a letter every year of what the percentage, what they're going to be giving away, what they have available for grant making. And that's always, right now, for the last 10 years, that distribution or payout rate has been 4%. So if you want to do the math on 3 million, you're talking about $120,000 a year forever. The idea is that that's invested in a long-term investment strategy. So the idea is that's going up along with the other assets that we have. So that percent, 4% of X is going to continue to grow, tax-free, obviously, and that money will be available for grant making by the committee for forever. And what May was getting at is the long-term, and Athan we're getting at is upstream long-term philanthropy, even multiple year commitments for helping see things through will be really effective because of this endowment.
Yeah. And Tiffany, just to answer you and not to skirt it, but part of even being strategic is taking this time to think and learn, but also it may be, some people may say, well, they haven't given to direct. It could be something like, maybe it's possibility to get at the health inequities. Big League does the money to do maybe a feasibility study for a medical clinic in East Greensboro. And then that can be leveraged by some of the local hospital or even county pieces of it. And oftentimes philanthropy, and this is what's really important, and the Starks mentioned it, when you go to this conference and exposure, philanthropy can do a lot of different things. And so one of the things that I had advised the committee said, we didn't want to we're really broad because we want to be able to be adaptive. And we even have a clause in here, and it came up, that was very interesting. The tornadoes really prompted us, because May brought it up and said, well, we need to have a clause in here where from time to time, there's going to be a certain crisis or something that will impact the Black community. We have that in there that they will be able to be responsive to those things. And it may be direct need in that sense, but we really want to be focused and being strategic in a broader sense, but more importantly, be adaptive. And like I say to people, what we want to say, imagine if we would have had Big Equity started 15 years ago and how we could have responded. So that's the mindset we're trying to get people to think about. But also we were honest and we said, hey, we're talking about Black folks, the disparities. We literally said, we can start if it's housing, whatever, we know the gap is there. But we're also, part of that is that it's not just also focusing on just what I'd say problems, but how about being able to create opportunities? And philanthropy can do that. You know, it may not always be about, it may be being able to say, what if at A&T there's nanotechnology and there's a group of people who want to go out and start that business and do that things. Philanthropy can do a lot of different things. And that's what we're trying to say, that big equity can do that and be forward thinking. But that gives you an idea that what it could be. It's to be visionary and do some things. And Mae Douglas is the one who got me talking like this, because I took her we were out in California and she saw it and she said, okay, we thinking too small. Now this is where we're going about. And that's really what I hope when I said earlier about, I don't want folks to get too caught up in the interest areas and the how, but look at us and we're going to be working just like philanthropy works in the bigger vision of being very strategic.
Thank you all. Thank you for that.
I would just like to make one comment. I have found that the Black community doesn't always recognize and honor the resources that are there, and the willingness of people to become part of a movement like this, if they are approached, made aware of it, and have an understanding of what that means. So my suggestion would be certainly to think of some of the key people in Greensboro and in the Guilford County area, but also some of those individuals that may not be as part of the mainstream, and do whatever it takes to bring them into the fold of at least having an awareness of this as an opportunity. And I've just seen that done differently with some of the other institutions that Bob and I have been part of supporting and have made a commitment to support. There's just a willingness to knock on our door or approach us with an attitude of they just want to make us aware. And so that's just a lesson that I found, I think has been learned. So hopefully it will bring, come to fruition for Greensboro's Foundation also.
I think that you have beautifully stated everything that we've been talking about, because if you go back to our mission, it said to pool resources. Because one of the things that we discussed as a steering committee is that we acknowledge that the Black community does have resources. And to your point, we often have not been asked. So one of the areas of this work that has really energized me has been the opportunity to educate about philanthropy and the power that it has. But more importantly, and why we have 110 donors, is that we have asked people. Oftentimes we don't get asked. So you have beautifully stated some of the foundational principles that we have about how we're going to get this work done. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And I'll just add to that, part of our process is we tell people, it's like, we put in some work to get here. I glanced over it, but we had donor engagement dinners, and part of the challenge in the pandemic, you know, we had to manage all of that. We plan on maybe doing when we can gather again to be able to do those en masse, but also that's where people like you and Bob are so important to host. And we say these information sessions where we can ask people, but more importantly, you can introduce us to the people who need to be asked, who we have missed, but also it just builds that trust. And just like the Starks did, there, you know, we need people to tell why they're big. Because people can hear me all day, but when Millie and Bob say you need to do this, sometimes that's all it takes.
I wish it were that simple.
Don't be surprised, you'll be amazed.
Okay.
Well, if there aren't any others, I'm glad to see some people here. I see who've been on here a long time with us, like Reggie Randolph, Doris Maxwell. I see you. And I think also I saw Ida, who was in, Ida Brackens, who is a steering committee member. Her name didn't come up, thank you for joining us. But Reggie, you've been one of the people who were in the room when there was just 4 of us sometimes, and this is where we've come to. And thank you for being here and joining us. And we'll don't want to keep people too long. I get paid to stay, but I know others have things that they need to do. And Kendrick, if you can pull up real quickly again, how to support Big Equity, in case some of you all hopefully have received your packets. But it's very simple. You can contact me directly, or you can go to our website, or even put in bigequityfund.org. You can support us by a check to Community Foundation for Big Equity Fund. As we've mentioned earlier, this is about also assets. We can take assets in whatever form they are, and we can talk directly with you. You can make legacy gifts too. But also, we realize this, people, you have the option to make a pledge. Several people have made pledges. We welcome those. But more importantly, when you make the pledge, we like for them to be paid because that gets us closer to the 3 million. But we do realize that, and that's something that we're embracing. In fact, that's been part of us breaking down even some of the misinformation. We've had people say that I can't give to the Community Foundation, only wealthy white people do that. And I say, well, a lot of wealthy white people, they make a lot of pledges, and they do it on what I call layaway philanthropy. I know somebody on the call is going to get mad because when I say that term, but that's all a pledge is. You can do it in installments in your commitment, but that's a very, very important barrier. I emphasize that because that has been a barrier that a lot of people have felt, that they felt like they got to have it all right then and there, but you can make your pledge, your commitment to this. And just to give you all an idea, the success, the average gift amount so where we are has been about $9,000, $9,500 when we do the whole giving to date. So some people are pledging that. Some people are just so excited they're paying their pledge off early and doing it now. So however you want to give to this, we just want you to be big. Help us tell the story why we all are big, and continue to be a champion, and help us get the word out to all of Greensboro. And thank you again to the Starks for joining us, and we'll keep everyone posted. Thank you.